Hello, Seth again. I am sharing a few videos about the words of the Bible to help us become better Bible readers. And if you haven't watched it already, part 1 explained why we would even want to study the words of the Bible. If you already read your English Bible, you may be familiar with the fact that the Bible was originally written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. The Jewish scriptures are almost written entirely in Hebrew. They are sometimes referred to as the Tanakh for the Torah, the law, the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, the writings. There are also portions of Ezra and Daniel that are written in Aramaic. The New Testament of the Christian Bible is written entirely in Greek. Just for fun, let's take a glance at the Hebrew and Greek alphabets. Here's the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadi, Kof, Resh, Shin, Sin, Tav. Here is the Greek alphabet. Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, Eta, Theta, Iota, Kappa, Lambda, Mu, Nu, Xi, Omicron, Pi, Rho, Sigma, Tau, Upsilon, Phi, Psi, Omega. With both alphabets, there are variations in how the letters are pronounced, both differences in terms of ancient and modern pronunciation, and different pronunciation schemes according to how scholars understand the ancient pronunciations, which we obviously don't have recordings of for comparison. My pronunciations are not the greatest, but they should give you a general idea of the names of the letters. While memorizing the alphabets can be a lot of work, there is value, even if you're not going to learn to read Greek or Hebrew, in studying the alphabets. If you took some time to study the first couple chapters in most Greek or Hebrew introductory grammars, you'd get a really good sense of the alphabets and how they work. And the value to you would be that you could then use some really helpful resources that are not available to you if you can't read the alphabets or don't know the alphabets. So here's the popular Brown Driver Briggs lexicon for the Hebrew Bible. And if you don't know the alphabet, it's completely useless to you. The same goes for the Greek English lexicon of the New Testament, affectionately referred to as BDAG. You have to at least know the Greek alphabet to use those resources. So now that we've looked at the alphabets and seen why that can be valuable, even for those who don't learn the languages completely, let's talk about this word morphology. If you've studied other languages like Spanish or French, you've learned that the spelling of a word can have a big impact on what it means. Is it singular or plural? Is it a verb or a noun? When we talk about those changes in spelling that affect meaning, we're talking about morphology. And English does this too. For example, you have cat and cats. You don't have to say more than one cat every time you mean more than one cat. You can just add an S and say cats. That's morphology. Likewise with the verbs, we can change the meaning by changing the spelling. I will run, I already ran, or I am running. Now English needs some helping words like will, already, am to clarify the tense of the verb. But often for Hebrew and Greek, as well as other languages, that can all be communicated just by changing the spelling of the word. And that's why morphology is even more important in the biblical languages than it is in English. In Hebrew, El can mean God or a god, while Elohim, just like cherubim or seraphim, is plural. Elohim means gods. An interesting feature of the Hebrew Bible is that Elohim, even though it is a plural form, is the preferred title for the one God of Israel. We can also look at one of the Hebrew words for love, ahav, which means he loved, when it's spelled ahav. But if we spell it as ahavta, it means you love, or depending on the context, you will love or you shall love. If we spell ahava, it is now the noun love. Ahav, like the overwhelming majority of words in the Hebrew Bible, is spelled with 3 root letters, and then other letters can be added or changed to clarify the meaning, to mean different things, whether you want it to be a noun, a verb, etc. In Greek, one word for love is agape, which is a noun, love. But if we spelled it agapao, now it means I love. But if we spell it agapeses, it means you will love, or in some contexts, you shall love. When you hear preachers talk about the meaning of the word in the original language, it's helpful to pay attention. Are they talking about the specific form, meaning how it's spelled in this instance? Or are they talking about what the word means in general and giving the basic definition of it? When they mention this is a plural or this is a singular, a verb or a noun, they say it's in the future tense or the perfect tense or the aorist tense. Those are all observations about the word's morphology, how it's spelled. Those variations can be very significant for meaning in some situations. Sometimes those differences based on how it's spelled can be exaggerated as they explain its meaning. Now, if somebody wants to look up a word in a dictionary or lexicon like I have here, they're going to be looking up the basic lexical form. That just means the form the word shows up in the dictionary. So if you're looking up the word cats, you don't look up cats, you look up the word cat, and the other variations will show up in the English dictionary. If you want to look up the word loving in an English dictionary, you look up the word love, and loving will be listed as one of the possible forms. It's similar in the biblical languages. For nouns, which can be masculine or feminine in Greek or Hebrew, as well as neuter in Greek, the lexical form is typically the singular form of the word. So one cat. Hebrew verbs are listed in the dictionary as third person singular in the perfect or past tense. So ahav means he loved. Greek verbs, on the other hand, are listed in the dictionary as first person singular present tense. So agapao means I love. And often when preachers and authors talk about the basic meaning of a word, they'll use it in the infinitive form, to love, even though what they look up in the dictionary will be either he loved or I love, depending on which language they're studying. The main value of the information in this video is if you wanted to use some of these tools that are available to scholars. You need some basic understanding of the language and the alphabets. But hopefully you can also notice whether preachers and authors are explaining a word as it means generally, or when they're explaining how that word works in a specific context. There are times when it's appropriate to do either of those things, but it should be obvious which is happening. I mentioned in my last video that in my next video, this one, I would explain some tools that you can use right away. Now, I've mentioned some tools here, but we're not quite ready to use those. I think we need a whole video explaining some tools that you can use, so that is actually going to be in my next video. Until then, go to stepbible.org. Look at some passages that you are interested in, play around with the different features. Stepbible.org is a fantastic resource. STEP stands for Scripture Tools for Every Person. And it's great because every person can benefit from the tools there. So I'll explain some of those features in more detail in the next video. Again, leave me a comment if you have any questions about studying biblical words or specific biblical words that you'd like to know more about. And together we can become better Bible readers.